Hello, third graders. Welcome to our lesson today. Today we're going to look at the last group of non-flowering plants. So we've learned about conifers. Remember, they have those cones and needles. Yesterday we talked about ferns and how ferns grow in those damp, shady places, and that they attach sometimes to different trees, and they have those spores that open and release to make the new plant. And that the little baby plant is called a fiddlehead when it's shaped up and curly. Today we're going to talk about mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. So I am in my reading packet on page 74, and I'm in my question packet on page 85. And we're going to start off just like we've done with those true, false, before questions, getting our brain thinking. So first statement says, moss plants do not have roots. Moss plants do not have roots. So is that true or false? What do you think? The second statement says, the stems of hornworts contain lots of tiny tubes for transporting water. Is that true or false? And again, you might have no idea, and that is okay. Take a guess. All right, let's go ahead and get started and read along with me. So we're going to start with our mosses, liverworts, and hornworts discussion. Mosses, liverworts, and hornworts are another group of non-flowering plants that grow from spores. So these would be like ferns. They have those spores. Unlike most types of plants, the plants in this group do not have special parts for carrying water and nutrients. They survive without these parts by being small. So what's the special part that they have for carrying water and nutrients? Stems. That would be the plant structure. So these plants do not have stems, which means they do not have those tiny tubes to transport the water. Instead, they're super small. Instead of roots, these plants have structures called rhizomes that anchor the moss to soil, rock, or bark. So they don't have roots, they have a different system that anchors them. Instead of getting water from the soil, they act like a sponge, soaking up water from the air or from the rain. So think of a sponge and how if you run water over it, it soaks in that water. That's what these plants do. The stems of these plants do not contain tubes, so the water and nutrients move straight from cell to cell throughout the plant. So there's two answers to our questions. Do they have roots and do they have tiny tubes? The answer is no. So here are some pictures of mosses, liverworts, and hornworts. This is mosses over here. And you can see how little they are and how they grow right on the ground, and they're small. Okay, it's a close-up of a moss plant over here on this side. Okay, they have a spore little capsule on top. That's what these little openings are. Mosses are soft green plants that are very short. Their stems are about the thickness of a hair. So take one little teeny piece of your hair and look at it. That's what their stem would be. Moss plants grow close together, producing a thick carpet-like appearance. Mosses grow in shady places, such as old logs or on sides of buildings where moisture would gather. Mosses are found nearly every moist place, from the rainforest to the Arctic tundra. And again, here are some other pictures of mosses. You can see they almost look like a carpet because they grow so close together. Here's another picture of them. Mosses are tiny plants. Most types of mosses are less than 4 inches tall. So they grow over the ground. Remember, they don't have roots. They have a different system that anchors them, and that they don't have those tubes in the stems. Here's a close-up of a moss, kind of zoomed in here. The brown little stems that you see kind of sticking up in between here are the spore capsules. So on the very top of those is where those spores would be that are released to make a new plant. Now the next group, liverworts and hornworts, are plants that are similar to mosses. Liverworts got their name because their broad, flat leaves are shaped like an animal's liver. The leaves on hornworts are long and look like an animal horn. There's how you can tell the difference. They often have a waxy coating on them to keep the water inside. So if you've ever seen wax paper, if you run water on it, it doesn't allow the water to absorb. And that's what they have on the outside, so the water stays inside. Hornworts and liverworts live in damp, shady places in forests and swamps. And so here is a picture of liverworts. And so these leaves are what they look like an animal's liver, which is where they got their name from. And then this is a picture of hornworts. So they kind of look like a horn. So these are just different types of plants. And this is someone's hand. So think about how small these little teeny plants are. They've definitely been zoomed in. All right, so things that are common with mosses, liverworts, and hornworts that we've talked about, they are small, they grow close to the ground, they make spores instead of seeds, they do not have roots, and they don't have tiny tubes to transport water. What is a difference from these plants? Well, different things are fern plants have leaves called fronds, and they produce spores. Mosses don't have leaves or roots. They're much smaller, so no tubes, no roots. They do have spores, okay? They move, the water and nutrients moves from cell to cell. All right, next time we come together, we're going to have a discussion on how do plants respond to different things around us, like light and gravity.